Okay, I'm here reading the children's book of Bible stories. I'm on section 28. The title is David the Shepherd Boy. It's in reference to 1 Samuel chapter 16. In the town of Bethlehem, long, long ago, there lived a boy named David. David was a shepherd boy. He loved to watch over the sheep. He led them in the green pastures, and he found cool water for them to drink. Oftentimes, David took his harp out to the hills. Then he played beautiful songs of praise to God, and he sang about the wonderful works of God. One day, a white-haired man came to Bethlehem. It was Samuel the prophet. The people were happy to see Samuel. They made a feast for him. Jesse, David's father, went to the feast. David's brother went to the feast too, but David was out in the hills watching the sheep. Samuel said to the people, "God sent me to anoint a king. It will be one of the sons of Jesse. I will pour oil on the head of the one God chooses, and someday he will be the king of Israel." Then the sons of Jesse came to Samuel. They walked by him one by one, but Samuel shook his head. God did not choose one of them. Samuel said to Jesse, "Is this all of your sons?" Jesse said, "I have one more son. He is just a boy. He is out in the hills watching the sheep." Samuel said, "Call him to come." Someone ran to find David. David hurried home. He washed and dressed. Then he went to the feast. Samuel saw David coming, and the Lord said to Samuel, "This is the one. Anoint him. He will be king of Israel." When David came near, Samuel poured the oil on his head, and the Spirit of God lived in David's heart ever after that. But when the feast was over, David went back home. He took care of his father's sheep again. Section 29, David and the Giant. David's brothers were soldiers in the army. They went to fight against Philistines. David was not old enough to be a soldier, but one day David's father sent him to the army to see how his brothers were. While David talked with his brothers, he heard a big voice cry out, "Send somebody to fight me. You say you have a great God, but you are afraid of me? Who dares to come and fight me?" David looked around, and there up on the hill stood a big giant. He had a great big sword and a great big spear. David looked around, and there up on the hill stood a big giant. Oh, I'm repeating it. He had a great big sword and a great big spear. All of the soldiers were afraid of the giant. They said, "Listen, that is Goliath, the giant. Nobody dares fight him." David said, "Why does nobody dare fight him? We are God's people. We cannot let them make fun of our God." Then the soldiers brought David to King Saul. King Saul said, "Do you dare fight the giant? You are not big enough." David said, "Once a bear caught a little lamb, and God helped me kill the bear. Once a lion came for my sheep, and God helped me kill the lion. He will help me kill this giant." Then Saul let him go to fight the giant. David did not have a sword. He had a slingshot. He went to the creek and found 5 smooth stones. Then he went to meet the giant. Goliath laughed when he saw David come. David was just a boy. But David said, "I come in the name of the Lord." Then David put a stone in his slingshot. He ran and he threw the stone. The stone hit Goliath in the forehead, and the big giant fell dead. When the Philistines saw the giant fall, they ran. The men of Israel ran after them. They chased the Philistines out of their country. Then all the people of Israel sang songs about David and the giant. King Saul took David home to live in the king's palace. Section 30, the title is David Runs Away, and it's in reference to 1 Samuel chapter 18 through 20. Saul had a son named Jonathan. When David lived in the house of King Saul, David and Jonathan became friends. But after a while, Saul began to hate David. He hated David because he knew that someday David would be king. Then it happened that Saul became very sick. An evil spirit came to bother him. Saul's servant said, "Music will chase the evil spirit away. We must find someone who can play sweet music." They knew David could play, so they called David to play his harp for Saul. When David played his harp, the evil spirit went away. After a while, the evil spirit came to bother Saul again. The servants called David again to play his beautiful music for Saul. But this time, the evil spirit did not go away. Saul looked at David and hated him more than ever. Suddenly, Saul took his spear and threw it at David. David saw the spear coming. He stepped aside, and the spear went into the wall. But after that, David could not play for Saul again. He was afraid Saul would kill him. Jonathan said to David, "I do not think that my father really wants to harm you. I will ask him. If he does, I will help you run away." So they made a plan. Jonathan said he would go talk to King Saul. Jonathan said, "When I come back, I will bring my bow and arrows, and I will bring my little boy. I will shoot an arrow and tell my little boy to go get it. If I shoot it just a little way, that means you can stay here. If I shoot it far, that means you must go away." Jonathan went to talk to Saul. David hid in the bushes and waited. Soon Jonathan came back. He had his bow and arrows, and the little boy was with him. David watched Jonathan. He saw Jonathan take an arrow and shoot it. The arrow flew far away, out into the field. Jonathan called to the little boy, "The arrow is too far away. Run and get it." The little boy ran to get the arrow. Then Jonathan gave him the bow and arrows and sent him home. When the little boy was gone, David came out of his hiding place. He knew he would have to go away. The arrow told him that. Jonathan came to meet David. They kissed each other and said goodbye. They were sad. Then David went away into the wild country. He found a cave in the hills, and he lived in the cave. After a while, other men came to live with David. They made David their leader.